You're listening to Perfect Health on Elastic FM with me, Elaine Godley, and I'm delighted to welcome to the show today Natasha Harris. And Natasha is an intuitive coach and healer, and she primarily works with conscious business owners. So welcome to the show, Natasha.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Delighted to be here.
So first question asks itself really, what is an intuitive coach and healer?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? I'll keep it brief. But yeah, so an intuitive coach is really, I work very much with intuition and really being guided by what's coming up in the moment with people. Working with business as well. Usually we, working with conscious business owners, we kind of feel sometimes that we need to be working in a set way to further the business, but actually the business is really an extension of us, and that's how we get to be doing what we love to be doing, getting to do what we love to do every day. So working intuitively allows us to express ourselves very differently in our business, and that obviously leads us to being much happier, much more aligned to what we want to do in our business, and thriving more, I believe.
It's amazing, isn't it, how often when the surveys are done, so many people are unhappy in their roles at work, and something like 75% of people, when they're surveyed, say they dislike their job. Yeah. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a terrifying statistic. As somebody who loves to get up in the morning and loves the work that I do and the connections that I make on a daily basis, 70% is really, really high, and I really want to be part of that change to move that people can really discover their what I call our soul power, in terms of being able to really stand up and shine in whatever we do and whatever we choose to do. So it doesn't have to be this drudgery, this, oh my goodness, I've got to get up and work for someone else and I hate what I do every day. It's like how we can really start to find our way within whatever we're doing, even if we work for someone else, or we're working as part of a bigger organization, or we work for ourselves as entrepreneurs or solo entrepreneurs.
I've got this theory. Well, in fact, it's not a theory. It's fact. I say that I've never done a day's work in my life because I've always enjoyed what I do, and if I ever have got to this stage where I don't enjoy, then I've done something else. And so many people feel trapped, don't they? They think they're trapped. Oh, I've got this job, and what am I going to do if I do? I only know how to do this thing. How do you coach people to kind of wake up and smell the roses, that their reality isn't necessarily their final outcome, for the rest of their days?
Yeah, so that's also true. People think that they only know one thing and that's how they know how to do. But when I've already mentioned to you previously, but I work with the Akashic Records, so that really gives us an insight into who we are, so we can really start to see what our gifts are, not just what we're good at and what we've been kind of the pathway that we've taken, that's because of societal roles, or because our parents have encouraged us to do certain things, or the things that we think we should do because we've kind of thought, oh well, I'm quite good at this, so I'll just follow that path. And we haven't connected with ourselves, our intuition, our inner wisdom, to really know what we want to do that's going to help us to thrive, not just survive. So it really is about connecting with what we love to do, so that we don't feel like it's work. I can't ever imagine myself stopping working, in inverted commas, because I'm just showing up every day as who I am, and I do what I do every day because that is who I am.
I think that's an interesting point, but also sometimes can get out of kilter, because it happened to me some years ago. I was kidding myself that I'm having fun all the time, I enjoy what I do so much, and I was a business mentor and interim consultant doing some quite big turnaround projects, and sometimes I was working till 2-3 o'clock in the morning because I love what I do. And then I needed to do a bit more and a bit more and a bit more to move the project forward. And then I was getting up at 6 o'clock and doing the same over again. And although intellectually in my head I thought I was fine, there comes a point where your body goes, not doing this anymore. You know, I've been giving you signals, you're not listening. I'm going to pull you down with something that's going to make you rest. So missing the intuitive messages that come along, you know, maybe aches and pains, or things that are put in our way. The intuition part fascinates me. So how would you describe intuition to somebody who's never heard the word before?
Yeah, so our intuition is really listening to our inner guidance. Sometimes we think we know something and we don't know why we know it. We just have this wave of information that comes to us, and we just know that it feels right for us. You know, sometimes what we do is we confuse intuition, that's something that's coming from the head. So we'll think something and we'll go, oh, I'm thinking this, therefore I must do it. Intuition for me is something that we feel experientially, not just with the mind. We feel it with our whole being, our whole sense of self, if that makes sense. It's like almost part of every fiber of who we are. And so those little signals that we receive when we need to slow down are our body's intelligence, and our head is the thing that goes, oh, that's all right, I can ignore that for a bit longer because I'm really excited about what I'm doing, so I'll ignore that. And we ignore that inner body intelligence that's giving us those signals. And our intuition, for me, tends to be it's quiet, it's subtle, it's not shouty or loud, or you must do this, or you must do this, or you should do this. It's very much this gentle little nudge, and that's why it's quite easy for us to ignore, and for us not to listen to.
I've interviewed so many natural health coaches, consultants, therapists, call them what you will, and again this connection, the body connection, mind body connection, comes up all the time, obviously, but also now there's a lot of talk about this M-braining, multiple braining, where we have our gut, our heart and our head, and all three need to be synchronistic. And if we have an intuitive feeling in our gut and our heart, to follow it rather than trying to talk yourself out through your logic. And sometimes intuition, it feels right, doesn't it? And how many times do we look back and go, oh damn, I should have done such and such. I felt, you know, whatever was right, and I talked to myself out of it. Damn, I wish I've done that. So how can people be aware of the intuitive feelings that we get and we ignore, you know, quite often? How are there any tips that you can suggest?
Yeah, so firstly, I think really it is practice. It is doing, I'm a massive fan of, you know, doing small things in small, easy ways creates a massive change. If we're heading in a particular direction where we're only using our brain, our logic and everything else from that perspective, and we make a tiny 1 degree change at this point here, to start listening, to tuning in a couple of times a day, we're already sending ourselves on a very different trajectory. And over a period of time, we will tap into that more and more and more, and then we will end up in a very different direction, in a very different space. So firstly, I think it's very, very small ways of practicing that. Connecting to the breath a couple of times a day, just taking 3 nice deeper inhalations, you know, allowing the body to feel the breath coming into the body and releasing it. Amazing for releasing stress and anxiety, you know, letting go of the nervous system, allowing that to rest, just brings us back into more of a body experience. So just this simple thing like the breath that we take very, very much for granted, we've forgotten how to connect with that, and our breath gives us a lot of clues into how we're feeling, how we're responding to things, whether we're holding our breath in moments of stress and anxiety. So just simply connecting a little bit more to the breath can have a really big impact and change. And that's generally where I start with my clients. I can see their breathing straight away when I'm working with them as to where they're holding on to tension, where they're not listening to themselves, where they've got kind of energetic blockages. I work very much around the energies of things, and connect them back to the energy of the body. The body is a very intelligent system that is purely energetic. So working with that.
Are there any particular breathing techniques that you recommend? Or I mean, there's so many different versions. You hear about yoga breath, potato breathing, all kinds of different styles of breathing. Is there any one particular style that you recommend, or technique?
So again, I think it's very difficult to kind of describe it with words, but again, it's very simple. It's when we are in a moment where we are stressed or anxious, or when that email pings up and we think we've got, our breath is held, and we fire back a response, and then we think later, well, maybe I shouldn't have responded like that. We create choice when we slow down. We create moments of choice in order to make a different decision going forward. So in those moments, it's really about firstly becoming aware that you are going to react and respond immediately, and allowing yourself to take 3 deeper breaths in. And when you breathe in, allowing the belly to expand and rise, and then a deeper exhalation, allowing the body to start relaxing, softening, letting go of that tension. And just 3 deeper rounds of breath in that way can be really releasing. And then 3 normal breaths, so just allowing the breath to come to its own natural rhythm, and just seeing what the breath does. And just those 3 deeper breaths and 3 calmer breaths will just bring us to a different space of being. And in that moment, you've just created a pause that's taken 10 seconds, maybe 15 at the outset. And then we can ask ourselves, what do I choose to do now? And for me, that is such a powerful question, because in each moment we have a choice. We can either react, very quickly without really thinking about it, or we can take a break. So having this choice brings us back more into control of who we are and what we choose to do in every choice and decision and experience.
So is that breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth, or nose breathing, or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. I tend to say to my clients to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, because it's just more releasing that way. But the idea is not to create more tension as we take a deep breath in. So often what we do is we take a deep breath in and our shoulders rise and we hold the tension in our bodies. What we want to do is take a deep breath in and allow the body to expand, a bit like blowing into a balloon. So if you imagine that the balloon is, as we blow into the balloon expands from all directions. That's what we want to create. Often we breathe in and we suck our belly in, and that creates more intent, and we raise our shoulders and that creates more tension. What we want to do is create a breath that feels like we are, inhaling a bit like a balloon, and our body expands, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, okay. So intuitive coach and healer, working with conscious business owners. What do you mean by conscious business owners, Natasha?
Yeah, so conscious business owners who are really here to create a bigger impact in the world through positive change. So people who are creating a ripple of change that's very much, needed in the world. I come from an environmental background. I've worked in conservation for many years. And so working with people who are in that field, helping others, supporting our environment to thrive more, and how we can create more connection and more with nature and with society as groups and communities of people. So that's what I mean by conscious, bringing people together, bringing more connection to our environment for the better of everybody that live on this planet.
So why business owners?
I love to work with people who have a bigger vision of how they want to create the change and how they want to get it out into the world. So to have a bigger impact, we have to have more visibility. We have to really know what we are standing for in our business and what change we want to create. And so through the Akashic work at the Akashic Records, working intuitively, coaching people, and with healing, we can get out of our own way and really stand in our power to make those ripple of change even bigger by having a much bigger impact through the work we do. So I love working individually and in small groups with people.
And of course, with business owners, they have generally they have teams of varying sizes, and starting at the top, isn't it? If the culture of most organisations starts from the top, and they can then influence. If you influence them, they can then influence their teams, and hopefully spread the word further.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, when we create change for ourselves, the change happens outwardly. And as I you know mentioned at the beginning, you know, our business is an extension of who we are. So if we are standing in our power and we know who we are and what we're here to create that ripple around, then we can impact everyone in our business, everyone that we touch, all our clients, in a very, very positive way. And then that ripple just keeps, a bit like a pebble in a pond, just keeps rippling out.
Fantastic. So Natasha, let's have your first record. You've chosen Club Tropicana by Wham, which goes back to 1983. Crikey.
Yes, I just have such fond memories of that era of Wham, and, you know, going to see them in concert at Wembley, and just really being, you know, in love with that whole kind of music. And Club Tropicana was just such a fun video, so lively, and so you know, going out and having fun and really connecting to, you know, ourselves. So it really, I just have very fond memories of remembering that video and the song and dancing to it in my younger years.
Fabulous. So let's listen now to that song. So here's Wham. You're listening to Elaine Godley, and I'm in the studio today with Natasha Harris, who is an intuitive coach and healer. So Natasha, we were talking about the fact that you like to work with conscious business owners. Is this something that you've always wanted to do? How did you start off? Take us through your schooling and career up until you started becoming this wonderful intuitive. I love the phrase intuitive coach and healer. That sounds really quite a solid thing. Sometimes on the interviews I've done, it's all a bit woo-woo and a bit, you know, sort of a bit soft and fluffy, but that's a proper title, intuitive coach and healer. So take us through your childhood, what sort of childhood you had, and how you kind of developed and transcended into what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, my path has been anything but linear to get to here. I've taken lots of routes and different directions, and yeah, I did when I was younger. I mean, I've always had a connection with nature and being out and about, so that was always very important to me. But actually, through schooling, I was very intrigued by computing. It was quite new in those days, without giving too much of my age away. You know, and so I wanted to learn more about computers, and so I studied computing at college, programming. I went to university and I did computer programming degree. And yeah, and so that was really interesting, because it's interesting you say that my title is quite solid. I think for me it was that training around that to be quite logical, quite practical around things, that has allowed me to implement that into my healing work and my intuitive work, very much so. And so then I left university and got a job working for a big market research company in their IT department, and as a support role, which I really loved, because that was much more around working with people in a big organization. And but I was very much working around project management, logistics, all of these kind of things, which I discovered I was very good at. And that's what goes back to our earlier conversation, you know, finding a direction that, you know, you think, oh, this is my path because I'm good at this. And it really came to, I think it was really in my very early 30s, just as I was kind of leaving my 20s and my early 30s, that I realized that actually I didn't think the corporate world was for me. And it was a very strong moment for me, where I think I sat down with family and friends and said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not really, I'm doing this job, but I don't feel like I'm me. I feel like I'm moving away from who I am. And there was a moment where I thought, well, am I going to want to be doing this for the next 35, 40 years of my life, and there was a very strong resounding no that came from within me. And I think that was my first moments of intuitive knowing that I had to change my path. I had to do something different, but I didn't know anything else other than computing and project management. But I knew I had a love for travel, and I traveled a bit, and I then came back and I thought, well, how do I get more into conservation? And that was my love and my passion. So I transitioned my my project management skills into conservation and setting up projects. And I was incredibly fortunate that I got sent to some beautiful, amazing places around the world, working in very, very rural areas, remote areas with remote communities, setting up conservation projects there and working on the educational level. And it was just a fantastic sort of few years of my life where my whole world opened up in terms of understanding the potential and the possibilities. So yeah, so that was sort of phase one of working towards where I am now.
So what happened next then? Did you get, it sounds a really interesting time you had. So were you working for an organization that sent you to these places? Were you volunteering? How did it come about?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. I started off as a volunteer working for some conservation organisations that were working abroad and sending volunteers out. So I started off doing some voluntary work, and then they offered me a paid position to work and go abroad. And then coming back to the UK after traveling for a number of years and working in different places, and mainly in Central and South America. I've always felt that that's my spiritual home, that I have been there many times in the past. And the love for Spanish language, I got to learn that. And yeah, just really kind of enjoying that freedom of movement and travel was just such a transition away from working in a corporate environment where I was working 10, 12 hours a day. The more I said yes to, the more I was given, and didn't know how to even start to say no. So this opened up a whole new doorway for me to really transition my love of nature, conservation, the environment, all of that side of things into that.
That also links into what I was saying earlier on about these surveys that are done every now and then, where 70 to 75% of people don't like their jobs. And I think it's a question of finding a way to generate an income from your passion. And if you're passionate about something, it's not work at all, is it? But then obviously keeping the balance between how many hours you're putting into it, so you don't burn yourself out, as I did. So
yeah.
you would,
and as I did too.
And
yeah,
I also resonated what you were saying about in the corporate world, you don't become, you kind of lose your sense of identity, don't you? The bigger the organization as well, I think, the more like them you become, you kind of tend to lose a sense of self, don't you? You kind of just go along with, it's almost like herd mentality.
Yeah, very much so. And if I'm very honest, I really did recognize that the person I was becoming was actually somebody I didn't like. And that was hard to admit that. Having always been such a gentle kind of child who was always loved being around people, how I created this very hard edge in getting stuff done. It was all about, how we got things done, how we did things well, how I improved things. And I really recognized that the person I was becoming was so far removed from who I was. And I didn't like her. So it was a real wake-up call.
And we need these wake-up calls in life, don't we, to kind of step back and smell the roses, as it were, and see what's actually. It's almost like you have to come out of yourself to kind of be a participant. What do you call it? Somebody who's watching a movie. So you kind of come out of yourself and watch your own movie going on, and you think, oh, what the hell am I doing here? Why have I done that? And then often you realise that you're doing stuff because it's expected, and you're just going along with what's expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very much expected. You know, I'm fortunate. My parents were always very supportive when I said I'm leaving my good job, well-paid job, and I'm going to go and travel the world for, you know, voluntarily. My parents were a bit like, what? But then very quickly they were like, you got to go do it. And, you know, it's what an opportunity. Can't turn that down. So I was very, very lucky in that sense that I had a lot of support. A few people were like, what are you doing? You're mad. And I was like, oh, I don't feel like I'm mad. I'm feeling like I just need to do what I need to do.
So you were traveling the world, you were doing these wonderful projects, making a difference, and finding yourself again. So when did you change that style of well, that chapter, shall we say, of your life?
Yeah.
What happened?
So I came back actually to the UK, back to London, and got a job working for a charity, but again very much using my skills of project management and in that working environment. And slowly but surely I realized that even though I was good at the project management, that wasn't what I loved to do. And so from there, that really led me onto a journey of, you know, being coached myself and meeting a wonderful, amazing coach who really helped me to kind of see a bigger picture around things and really kind of understand more of who I was and what I wanted to be doing. And I was already working with Reiki and energy healing, which was an interesting one coming from somebody who was purely, you know, logics, project management focused, etc. And again, it was one of those moments of really listening to my intuition that I'd gone to a yoga center and I picked up a leaflet and I was like, oh, what's this Reiki thing? That looks interesting. Oh, I'll go and have a look at that. And it was a weekend course. And I didn't really know anything about it at all, if I'm honest. And so I was like kind of in this environment where we were all doing hands-on healing. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really interesting. And again, there was this body knowing. I had to leave my head out of it because the logical brain for me was like, what are you doing? Putting your hands on somebody and it's making a difference. But when I was experiencing it, my body felt it. And there was again this massive inner knowing and understanding that there is a bigger intelligence that's at play. And so at the end of that weekend, she said, my teacher said, we're doing the next level in a couple of months if anybody's interested. And my hand literally just went up on its own. And I remember the teacher going, oh, it looks like you're coming to that then. I said, well, looks like I am. And just really trusting and really being okay that even though I didn't fully understand something, I was being guided and intuiting that this was my path. And so that was really where that whole pivotal thing for me changed, in trusting that I couldn't understand or fathom with my brain was something I needed to explore. And then my life took a whole new pivotal turn again.
So you've mentioned Reiki. What other modalities do you use in your coaching?
Yeah, so lots of different things. I use energy healing. So I work with the Akashic Records, which is very much around the energetics and about how we can tap into the energy of who we are. If we think about everything being energy, everything has an energetic resonance. Our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, everything we do, think and say has an energetic resonance. And now we've shown that we can't destroy energy, but we can transform it. So that's why we can go from feelings of sadness to joy. You know, again, that's just the energetic resonance of something we're feeling. We can go from darkness to light. You know, we have these polarities. So we can shift energy, but we can't destroy it. So if we can't destroy it, where does that energetic resonance of what we've created through thought, feeling, action, etc. go? And that's what they say is in the fifth dimensional aspect, and that's the Akashic Records.
So where did these Akashic Records emanate from? How old are they, and what do they say?
Yeah, so they are really ancient. So they're actually referred to in the Bible as the book of life, so that we each have a book of life. Now, I don't come from a religious background, but there's been this knowing that there is something more, and that energy is something more than we can see. It's more something that we can intuit. And so it's a bit like energy healing when we're doing hands-on, when I'm doing energy work or Reiki or anything like that, when we're putting our hands on somebody and we're intuiting where the energy is stuck, held, causing tension, causing stress to the body, that we can move and shift that energy so that it creates more of an energy flow. So it's the same that we can intuit and pick these things up with the body. We can tap into our Akashic records to pick up information about who we are at an energetic level, because we are energy, and so who we are at soul level, or who our higher self is, or our energetic being, however we choose to describe that. Because we if we believe that there is an energetic resonance to us, it's like we're tapping into that, who we are at that soul level, at that higher self.
So the Akashic Records then is a kind of a book. I mean, can anybody go and see the Akashic Records? Can you get a copy off of Amazon?
Can you get a copy, a hard copy of them? No. But I kind of liken it a bit to like an energetic database. So all that information of everything, and if you think about every action, thought, feeling is an energetic resonance, you can imagine how vast our individual Akashic record is. It's immense. So if we believe that we are a soul being, this is my belief, that we came into soul existence at some point in the past, and we've incarnated and have had many lives, then our Akashic record came into our existence. This energetic database of us, if you like, came into existence when our soul came into existence. And so that's what we can tap into who we are on this energetic resonance, so that we know what our energetic gifts are. We can tap into more into our soul purpose. We can tap into our power, because that's when we take action that's aligned to who we are on an energetic sense, that we can start taking action that's more aligned to who we are. And that's when we step into flow, and we can kind of feel this, I think most of us have experienced that to some degree, where we're doing something and we feel that we're in flow, that everything feels like it's easy, like what we were talking about before, that it's not about doing a day's work. We're doing what we do because we're in flow. It feels easy. Things are being orchestrated around us because we are attracting it, because we're stepping into this flow. And then what happens for many of us, we think, oh, wow, the universe is rewarding us for being in this flow, for doing something right, in inverted commas. And then for some of us, what happens is that we do something differently, and we kind of feel like everything's been taken away from us. And that is never the case. We are either aligned to who we are, or we step slightly out of alignment, and we just need to tweak and course correct a little bit to step back into alignment again.
That's really important point, knowing who we are and behaving in a way that's congruent with who we are. And so many people that I've seen over the years, when all the various different projects I've done, it's very easy to spot somebody who's out of alignment, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, because we're busy doing things that we think we should be doing, what we think society expects us to do. And we do this in lots of different roles, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, these things that are expected of us, as a mother, as a daughter, as a parent. We are all doing these things, and we can step into flow and out of flow. And I really do believe that when we have access to understanding who we are, we can do this more of a dance around it. We'll step out of flow a little bit, but we know and recognize, oh, actually that choice or that decision I made was slightly out of alignment to who I am. How can I course correct that and tweak that to step back into alignment? Because are we ever fully in alignment 110% of the time? My answer to that is probably no, because we live in a slightly chaotic world where lots of things and influences are going on around us, but many of us are so disconnected from who we are that they don't really know how to course correct or tweak. So the Akashic Records and the intuitive coaching that I do, especially around business, allows us to step more into that so that we can create flow in all areas of our life, our health, our well-being, our business and our finances, and also in our relationships, and those, you know, romantic relationships, but also relationships around who we, you know, we interact with every day.
Talking about the disconnect and the expectation of society, you know, we should do this and should do that and follow the herd, etc. That led me to create something on my website, which is a free downloadable assessment people can do. My website is perfect-health.co.uk, and on the front page there I talk about the perfect 10, which is there's 10 different categories, and if any of them are out of alignment, it's a way that people can self-assess themselves, and if any of them are out of alignment, they're the areas to concentrate on to kind of get back into flow, as you were talking about. So it doesn't matter where your flow is out, but you need to identify where it is. So for example, I've got family, friends, you know, mixing with positive people rather than people who, you know, causing you stress day to day. Work and home, values, beliefs, attitudes, behaviour, mind and body. So they're the 10 areas. And if any one of those is out, it affects the rest of them, doesn't it? And it affects your flow, your pattern, your day to day. You kind of get yourself lost in it all.
Yes, and we can get very lost, and, you know, knowing how to tweak these things is so vital to coming back to center and back to self. And so with the Akashic Records, what it does, it highlights the energetic resonance of certain actions and things that we're playing out, and repeating patterns of what we're playing out. It really highlights those for us, so we can really quickly see you know, and that's the intuitive element. You know, the Akashic Records gives me the information about the repeating patterns and the energy behind it, but then working with the client really helps us to identify how that's showing up in today, like in reality right now for them, and then how we can tweak that and shift the energy around it, doing clearing and healing work, obviously. But action is key. We're often waiting, going, oh, well, when this changes in my life, then I'll change this. You know, when I have some more money, then I'll spend money. But we have to take the action that aligns to what we want to create in our lives. We have to do that, and that's not always easy.
No, it isn't, and of course we're all individual. We're all different, and what would suit one person won't suit another person. So we have to be mindful of our own likes, dislikes, our own personality styles, our culture, environment, and there's a whole load of stuff that goes into it. And it's helpful having a coach such as yourself to help people through that situation that we can't often see for ourselves.
No, and that's absolutely true. And I know that for myself, you know, I do this work, but working with someone else who can reflect something back to me is so much more powerful than trying to do the work alone. And we get there so much quicker. And that's what the beauty of the Akashic Records are, is understanding who we are. It gives us that 10-step ahead understanding, so that we don't have to sit there and work it out or kind of dig deeper to find out what that is. It gives us that information for us, and it just makes so much sense to people, and it's just such a moment of like, oh wow, that, of course, like how that's so obvious when I think about it. And that's the beauty of seeing those realizations for people.
Fantastic. Let's have your second record, which you have chosen, Sounds of Eden by Shades of Rhythm. Why did you choose that one, Natasha?
So I think, again, that goes back to my university years, first year at university, you know, this real happy again music, like dance, I've always loved movement and dancing, and always felt, you know, great when I'm in that environment and dancing to great music. And so that this song really brings that for me, and always makes me want to move, and just kind of, whenever it comes on, I just want to move. It takes me back to that time.
Here we go then, the Sounds of Eden. So that was Sounds of Eden, Shades of Rhythm. Now, Natasha Harris, who is an intuitive coach and healer. It's been lovely chatting with you this afternoon. So coming towards the end of the program now, what I've written down here, fifth dimension, you mentioned earlier on. What do you mean by fifth dimension?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. How can I explain that very briefly? But yeah, the fifth dimension, you know, third dimension is very much about what we see in the physical world, you know, our actions, what we do, you know, the table in front of us. This is all the third dimension that we see. The fourth dimension is more about our thoughts and what we're thinking. So we can't see our thoughts, but we know that they're going on because we're always constantly having thoughts all the time. So that's the fourth dimension. And the fifth dimension is the energy, is the energetic dimension. So again, this is not something that we can see, though some people really do see the energies. I often see energies at play. So the fifth dimension is really where all the energetic resonance of our actions, our thoughts, our feelings are all stored. So when we do something with joy, you know, if as we're just talking about, you know, the movement of dance, you know, that has an energetic resonance, and that is ripples out and is stored in the fifth dimension.
Wonderful. That's the clearest explanation I've had of that, so thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay, so Natasha, how can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so they can get hold of me in a number of different ways. My website is www.mindbodysoulenergy.co.uk. For any of those conscious business owners who want some group support, I have a private Facebook group which is called Soul Inspired Leaders. So people who are really connected to their want to create change and have this ripple effect out and a bigger impact in the world. So they can very welcome to come and join my group there as well.
And do you have any top tips in closing now for people to take, you know, they've heard what you've had to say in the program. What can they do to help themselves? What could be the next steps for them?
So I think firstly is to really create change in a very small and manageable way. If there's something more that people feel that they want to do, they know they want to do, if they're unhappy in their work roles or in the jobs that they're doing, is to start changing something in small ways. Start to create and do things that feel good, that feel aligned to who you are. You know, go a bit slower. Start to enjoy and connect with yourself, connect out with nature, and start coming back to you. Ask yourself the powerful question, what do I choose to create for my life? And start to take some back of that power of choice of what you want to do, because that's what's so important. You know, it's not being selfish, it's not being reckless to do what you want to do. It is so important that if we want to go out there and have a bigger impact in the world, that we start looking after ourselves. So that's what I really want to encourage people to do. And if people are interested in knowing what their soul power is and tapping a little bit into the Akashic Records, I do have a free download where people can put in some details. I will look into their Akashic Records, because this is not something that can be automated. It is very much unique to every single one of us. So I will have a look at their Akashic Records and send them some information so you can start to really understand who you are at soul level, your power, and how you can start taking action to align to who you are and start creating a business that you love. So I'll pop that link. I'll give you that link for that download as well, Elaine.
So that's people can obtain that themselves by going onto your website?
Yes, they can either go into the website or into my private Facebook group and have a look there. There's a little download button.
Fantastic. And just remind us again, finally, what your website address is.
Yes, so it's www.mindbodysoulenergy.co.uk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Natasha Harris, intuitive coach and healer. Thank you for your time today, and to following your work.
Yes, thank you, Elaine. It's been great to talk to you. Always love to talk about the Akashic Records and how we can go out there and do what we love.
Marvellous. And listeners, if you'd like to hear this again, we're repeating on Saturday 11 till 12. So if you didn't catch all of it today or would like to repeat again, you can hear Saturday on Elastic FM 11 till 12. And you can also catch up again on my website, so www.perfect-health.co.uk. Go to the radio page and you can then see some of the interviews or hear some of them, depending if it's been a YouTube or a audio recording. So whatever you're doing, have a fantastic week, and I will be on air again next Tuesday, 4 o'clock. Take care. Have a great week.